Welcome to Anabolic Evolution, the podcast where muscle meets mindset. This is Matt Twigg, joined by my friend and fellow bodybuilding enthusiast, Craig Humble. Each episode, we will dive deep into the world and history of bodybuilding, from the science of muscle growth to the art of achieving your ideal physique. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or just starting your fitness journey, join us as we explore the transformative power of bodybuilding. Let's evolve together in strength and spirit. Tune in now and explore the limits of what you thought possible. Craig, how you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good, thanks, Matt. How are you?
Doing good. So today we're going to start off the beginning of our podcast series. I think a great way to do that is with kind of origin stories, our background stories for the listeners. So we'll start off with yourself.
All right.
We'll go in from the past up to today and give listeners an idea of where we came from, what we're about. I think that will help engage them and understand us as human beings, which is always a good bonus. So first of all, let me just ask you quickly, let's get into it. How did you get started with the bodybuilding thing in your early years?
All right, sure. So even though I may look it, I'm not actually a boomer.
Definitely not.
So, So in the early 80s, it was really, movies like Conan, stuff like that were really popular, and Rambo, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, it was like Jack dudes running around action hero movies, right? So that was kind of what tweaked my interest at first. I was always like a very small, skinny kid in school.
Yeah.
And I kind of got my interest piqued by that. Of course, back in those days, they had this like notion that if you start training too early, that you're going to stunt your growth and all this kind of stuff. So we couldn't even get gym memberships until we were like 18, I think 18. Was the first year. But prior to that, it's like I had a buddy that worked on a farm, and he had weights at his house, right? So he was training, and this guy got jacked. Really, he was one of those like, genetic responders, and just by training with, a couple of dumbbells and a barbell back in his place with a bench, like the guy had built a pretty impressive physique for a kid in elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And, I asked my parents, can I get a weight set? They're like, no. Okay. It'll stunt your growth. Okay. So then, so that was kind of the very origin of it. And then when I turned 18, I was living in Vancouver at the time, and I went and I got a membership at Ron Zalko Fitness, which was like, back in those days, they didn't have the big box chains that they have now. So it was kind of the best. It was reputed to be the best gym, and it was pretty expensive to start out with, but that was a price I was prepared to make. So I started, and I was 18, so I guess it was sort of early 90s at this point. I really wanted to get jacked, right? That was like all I wanted to do. And at that point, the only sports that I had played were like skiing, taekwondo. So it was all very sort of like, leg intensive stuff. Anyways, I had absolutely no upper body to speak of. And was just generally a skinny kid. I used to fight at like 140 pounds. So yeah, very small. So then I joined the gym, and I asked the guy, what do I have to do? And he was like, just want you to do these exercises. And he showed me like what exercises to do. And then he says, and I want you to eat everything in sight. I was like, okay. So, I did the exercise. About a month later, really nothing had changed.
Yeah.
And I saw the guy, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Not working. What's going on?
He's like, well, how much are you eating? I'm like, well, like 3 meals a day, trying to eat a lot each meal, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, no, that's not enough. Like, you got to eat everything. Everything, not just something, everything, but everything. Yeah. Like, like you should never, ever be hungry. And I was like, okay, well, and then so I went back and I tried again and didn't have any success there either, because, I thought, oh, I'm never hungry, so maybe I'm doing this right. But that was just because I was only eating enough that my body needed. So that's not enough to make it big, obviously.
Right.
So then I remember this was right when protein supplements first started coming out.
Those delicious protein powders of the early 90s. Yes.
Yeah. Right? So this thing, it was like sand, right? And it was like, it was vanilla flavored, and that was the only flavor that was available.
Vanilla flavored beach sand, our favorite.
That's exactly what it tasted like. And the consistency was the same as well. Because I don't know, I think they had put some sort of like, I think it was like some sort of seed in it to make it healthier, blah, blah, blah. Because at that point, I think that the protein powders didn't know if they were supposed to be health food or if they were supposed to be a bodybuilding supplement, right? It was right in the beginning where they're trying to be everything to everyone. And yeah, so the result was a horrible tasting protein powder, which I bought a tub of, made about halfway through.
Yeah.
And between that and not being able to eat up standard, training my butt off and getting very sore, but not getting anywhere, you know, I think I lasted about 2 months. So that didn't really work. Fast forward a few more years, and that was, fortunately, I ran into some friends that like to train as well. So, so we started to train together, and that was, you know, that was good. And this was right at the time when Ronnie, it wasn't Ronnie yet, but Dorian had just become Mr. Olympia, and there was just some absolutely magnificent bodybuilders at the time. Kevin Murphy, Wheeler, Sean Ray, Dorian, and my hero, who I really wanted to look like, and who was my vision of who I was going to look like. You're going to laugh when you hear this.
Tell me.
Master Elson body.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting choice. Yeah.
So wow. I'm a 140-pound kid.
Yeah.
That's going to be the 290
biggest guy on stage at the time. But he had glasses, so, you know.
Well, maybe I'm finally getting there at, 48, right? But yeah, so I just thought he was the greatest bodybuilder there was. He didn't have Dorian's back, but like from the front, the chest and the shoulders, the arms, the legs, abs, everything. He was like amazing. Yeah. So yeah, and the buddies that I was training with, they were bodybuilding fans as well. So, that's when I learned that you got to eat more than you want to eat. Everything in sight.
Qualified everything this time.
When it's everything in sight.
Yeah.
That means this was back before we were a bit more, I guess, educated about nutrition and kind of how fat you want to get in the off season. Also, this was prime Lee Priest time.
Okay.
And as we know, Lee Priest used to wail out in the off season, right? So
buckets of KFC.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I had that Flex magazine, right?
Well,
with a picture of him in it. So with the
put that on the wall of the fridge,
Yeah. So once I understood that, and then talking with my buddies that were a bit more knowledgeable than I was, we learned that you do really have to eat everything in sight. And it was like, if you're not at some point in the day force feeding yourself even though you're not hungry, you're probably not going to grow at the rate that you want to. So when I learned that, then I started to grow, obviously.
Yeah.
But that took a long time to get there. So did that for a while. I did like a nice big bulk, and then cut for the first time. And right after I cut, that was when I had my year of exchange in Osaka. So I came out to Japan and couldn't find a gym anywhere that I could afford, because the gyms back then, absolute minimum was like the equivalent of about $150, $200 US per month.
And there weren't many to choose from. That's for sure.
And they were all over the terrible, right? And they had operating hours from like 10 till 6 or something like that. Right? So, it was a really rotten environment. So I had, looked around at a whole bunch of stuff, and I was like sneaking into the rugby clubs, like they have the university clubs, right? So I'm sneaking into the rugby clubs, kind of clubhouse type thing. Getting a quick workout in on their rates. And then, just trying to stay physically active and stuff, right? So one of the things I was doing is I was playing basketball with the other foreign students that were there. And I was in the middle of a game, and I was like taking a jump shot, and the second I landed, I found out that there was a guy behind me trying to block my shot,
Mm.
and he then landed right on top of my Achilles tendon and snapped.
Oh, ouch, ouch.
So that put me out of bodybuilding for a while.
Yeah, that would.
So like not having access to a gym, blah, blah, blah. Back in the day when you tore a tendon like that,
Yeah.
there wasn't this active recovery thing that they have now, where it's like they get you up and running as quickly as possible and back training, etc.
Right.
The philosophy back in the day was stay off it. So it was like, you know, I was on crutches for 6 months, and I was on in a cast for, I think it was 3.
Wow.
So I had a full leg cast right after the surgery, which literally came from my hip down to my toes.
For an Achilles tendon injury.
Yeah, a full thing.
Yeah,
They didn't want any motion at all. They didn't want
none at all.
the foot moving, and they also didn't want the knee bending.
Right. Okay.
They completely immobilized the whole thing. And then when that cast came off, I cried.
Yeah, atrophy city.
It was terrible, man. Like, it was like I had lost everything.
Yeah.
But I could see my bones.
Yeah.
It was like, it was a really traumatic experience.
Yeah, that is scary. Yeah.
Then, you know, the rehab protocols were pretty conservative back then, so it was a very long recovery. But then eventually when I got back to Vancouver after the year exchange, then I did manage to get back into a bit of training, which was good. Then came back out to Japan for grad school. When I was at grad school, then similar situation where the gyms were a bit more expensive. I found out one that was a bit more reasonable because they started to have these like bigger chains. It was Mega Loss, right? The one that I got a ship at. So went to Mega Loss, and that was just sort of because I was a student, I could go during the daytime, so the strange hours that they're open didn't really affect me, and it wasn't that expensive, so that helped. And I started training there, and then sort of fell out of it again when I got into my career and I got my career started. Because back in those days, the culture in Wall Street was very work hard, party hard. So,
not conducive to bodybuilding lifestyle.
Not at all. Yeah. So it was work hard, party hard for a few years there. And then the financial crisis hit. And at that point, I was trading interest rate options. And one of the features about interest rate options is that as the market moves, your risk changes, right? So, you know, you could go to bed thinking that you have no risk, and then you wake up in the morning and you have scads of it, right?
Yeah.
And P&L flying all over the place, etc. So this was like something that was keeping me up at night. Every night it was like, you know, I mean, now it doesn't sound as bad, but like back in the day, if the S&P was down 1,000 points, like, people
1,000 points back then. Well, people,
I
remember the
notice then. So, and those were scary times, right? So, you know, and on top of that, it was like, you know, during that whole period, you know, you'd walk into work, and if it was RIF day, which is when they would do like a mass firing, a mass layoff, you know, you'd walk in there, and I remember 3 instances specifically where they were saying it's a 33% reduction. So it was literally like you walk in, look to your left, look to your right, one of you's gone by the end of the day. So it was very much like being you know, in a battlefield or something. And the stress was pretty immense, right? That's all I was getting to with that. So the stress was really immense. I couldn't sleep. Because I was waking up early in the morning, I knew that there was a Gold's in Harajuku that opened 24 hours. I think that was a 24-hour gym they had in Japan. And so I got a membership, and I started going. Started lifting again. This was in, I'm going to say 2007. And then I noticed that things started to click. Again, with the training and whatnot.
Probably good for you mental health wise and stuff too, to get in there.
That was, you know, and that's really what that kind of set the tone for the whole influence that bodybuilding's had on my life, is that it does provide that, even if it's not like, you know, even if you're not necessarily in the gym training angrily and screaming and all that kind of stuff,
right?
It's the physical exertion and bringing yourself to that, you know, we always say training failure, right? So bringing yourself to that point of exhaustion
Mm.
repeatedly releases all sorts of hormones and chemicals and stuff that just make you feel a little bit better. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it really helped to have that when I was going through that high stress period.
Yeah.
And that really changed everything, because it allowed me to do my job better too.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I don't think, especially if you have like a super high stress job, if you get to go release some of that stress. And I was training in the morning because I couldn't sleep. But getting rid of that stress before you go in, you've got a clear head.
Yeah.
You can handle situations and respond to situations better than just reacting to them,
Yeah.
In an emotional sense. You can be a bit more rational in the response. So, and that's really important, obviously, as a trader, when you're trading things where your risks are flying all over the place.
Yeah.
So that was a major benefit. And then through doing that through time, obviously, started to see some gains, and that was great. And then I reached a point where the gains sort of started to plateau. And I remembered that the key thing for me when I was training before with my buddies, when I started to pay attention to the nutrition part. And this was like early internet bodybuilding information era. So it was like you had like bulletin boards, right? You had boards.
2008, right? Probably.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You had boards that you could get information from. There were a few websites here and there. There wasn't a ton of stuff. So,
right.
If you read sort of 5 different sources or something, you could generally sort the wheat from the chaff, and what was the good information and what was the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And there was some stuff that was, I saw a lot of different approaches. And so I decided that I was going to try this protocol that was called lean gains. Is like, basically, I would call it intermittent fasting coupled with a kind of primitive form of carb cycling together. So basically what it was, the way that I break it down, is it was like on your training days, you have chicken and rice. And then on your rest days, you have like steak and salad. Okay. That's kind of the way that I break it down. Anyway.
Okay. So more protein, probably a little more fat in your off days.
Yeah. So it was, protein and fat versus protein and carbs, right?
Yep.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So I tried that, had good results with it. And then just started to delve further into the nutrition realm. And then eventually wound up pursuing getting a nutrition coaching certification from Precision Nutrition. And then also, of course, started to build sort of my own database or, anecdotal experience from various diets that are out there. So that's when that started to become, that was sort of, so that was, say, 2008 to 2013.
Okay.
In 2013, chatting with a buddy at work who's based in Australia, and he's a meathead as well. And he's like, have you ever wanted to go to the Olympia? And I was like, yeah. And so he's like, let's go. Really? Like, he's in Australia. I'm in Japan. We're going to go to the Olympia? But we're like,
right over. Yeah. Just give me a minute. Yeah.
Well, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well, because we're bankers,
when
we go, we're going to get the gold VIP pass, and blah, blah, blah. Right. So I've actually been on the Olympia stage.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. And got the thing. And when we were there, we sat behind Flex Wheeler and Dennis James.
Okay.
Yeah. So
nice
that
combo,
in and of
too.
itself was like kind of cool. So anyways, we had gone and went to the Olympia. And when I went to the Olympia, I always had the misconception that all bodybuilders are narcissistic douchebags. And
an unfortunate stereotype that I think has preceded us for a while. Yes,
it's true. Yeah. But the thing that's missed with that is that just because you're looking at yourself, if you're, the whole purpose of going to the gym is to build a better physique, you need to look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And you need to find those shots that you look good in.
Yeah, and the ones you don't look good, and
And
so you
the
know
ones
what to
that don't
improve.
look good. Oh, okay. What
Yeah,
do you think? Are you saying that's a bad pose for me?
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like carving a statue with your eyes closed. You can't, it's not
Yeah.
possible.
So
Yeah,
so that's exactly it, right? You have
yeah,
to, and also you have to be able to look at yourself objectively and
absolutely.
decide what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you need to
Hmm.
work on, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah,
that's not narcissism.
no,
That's
the
self growth.
opposite. Yeah,
It's growth.
yeah, yeah.
Right? So um so yeah, so of course I had gone in with that stereotype that
Hmm.
bodybuilders are narcissistic douchebags. And then I went to the Olympia, and everyone I met, whether it was competitor, okay, like because we stayed in the Olympia Hotel. Uh, Sadiq Hadzovic was like from Men's Physique. He was like staying on our floor.
Hmm.
Super nicest guy ever.
Hmm.
Jeremy Buendia, like it was so funny. Like we went to his thing at the athlete meet and greet, his table,
Hmm.
and nobody there. Nobody. There was nobody lined up to see him.
Uh,
Right? We walked up to him and we were like, "So, who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Jeremy. I'm coached by Hani, blah, blah, blah."
yeah,
We're like, "Oh, wow, Hani's got a good eye." Yeah. And he's like,
yeah.
"Yeah, Hani sees potential in me, blah, blah, blah." And then
Mm.
I win it that year.
Yeah,
Right? So, yeah.
yeah.
So, but it was like we had probably, I don't know, 15, 20-minute chat with the guy. And like, if you, I don't know if you've seen Jeremy, he can be a bit of a controversial character, right?
Yeah, he's got a bit of controversy around him. Yeah.
Bit of a fall from grace there for a while, but
Hmm.
look at the way that he's conducting himself now and the way that he is in terms of his personality. That's
Yeah.
that we met then,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Like he was humble, he was very encouraging, intelligent, like really, really good guy. And when
Hmm.
we were like, that's awesome. And
Mm.
of course, a couple of years were quite turbulent for him, but I'm really happy to see that he's come back to the guy that he is.
Yeah. Found his feet again, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and hopefully, at some stage, the people that are the haters and whatnot will be able to see through,
Mm.
when he had his slip ups and recognize him for the guy he is now.
Yeah.
But anyways, the people that we met, there, also in the, whether it was people at the expo, the competitors, the people at the meet and greet, other patrons, like other people that were just there visiting,
Hmm.
everyone was so energetic and encouraging, and
Hmm.
it was such a supportive atmosphere.
Hmm.
I was like, this is actually really fucking cool. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I was blown away, and I did not expect to have such a good time. And I remember we met Janet Lyug, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's
Yeah,
known for being really nice.
and she's incredible, like just
Yeah.
the absolute nicest person ever. And
Mm.
meeting people like that said, okay, maybe this is actually the type of thing that I want to get involved in.
Mm.
So I was like, well, I'm coming up on 40, and I've always been interested in competing.
Hmm.
And I just decided I'm going to I'm going to hire a coach, and I'm going to get ready for a show and compete as a master when I turn 40.
Great.
So yeah,
That's how it started. That's how you got yourself pointed at the stage
yep. And
that
then
time.
so I reached out to John Meadows, and
Mm-hmm.
because John had a really interesting site called Mountain Dog Diet,
Mm-hmm.
was like by far the best source of information I've ever seen.
Mm.
Because he would list like the exact diet changes and show update photos of the pros that he was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, John was like, a renowned coach. So,
Yeah.
he was it was just absolutely amazing to see that. And he actually talked fairly openly about PEDs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there was lots to learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
But the just the concepts of the nutrition and the changes over the course of a prep and things like that, is all very like eye-opening, mind-blowing type stuff.
Mm.
So and just the way that like whenever he talked in interviews or on YouTube or something like that, he was always such a down-to-earth character.
Yeah. Yeah.
That if I was going to ask anyone for help, I thought he would be the right guy. So I reached out to him, and of course, because naturally. But then
Yes.
again, I'm a guy who's never competed before, so I probably don't need a guy that's coaching pros anyway. So
Sure.
he recommended his right-hand man. And so I started working with him, and that was just an amazing experience. So we spent a year getting ready for the show, in terms of like a year bulk, and then we did like, it was a pretty long cut. I think it was 24 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, to get stage ready. And
yeah.
man, that first cut, holy cow. It just kept
a
going.
Whole new experience.
Kept going. The weight kept going down, and I kept getting smaller and smaller, and we still had more to go. And it was the same thing every week. I'm like, I'm down 2 pounds, but we still have more to go. Down 2 pounds, we still have more to go every single week for 26 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I think I cut 45 pounds for that show.
Wow, that's a big cut.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So that was the so then, you know, got on stage. The first stage experience was amazing. It was just so cool to finally compete and get up there. I competed in masters, but I also threw my, you know, hat in the ring for the open as well.
Sure.
Got lots of compliments on my conditioning, which is great because that's something that I worked really hard on. I think that like when it comes to bodybuilding, because I started as a smaller guy, to me, there's only 2 things that you can ever control at a given point in time. And that's your conditioning and your posing. So conditioning and your posing are the bare minimum. They need to be on point because you can actually control them in that moment.
Right. Yeah,
right?
true.
Size stuff is something that comes over the years. But in terms of the conditioning and the posing, that's something that you can kind of control in the now.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. So that was the stuff that I focused on. And I was actually like really aggressive about learning about posing. So I'd hired a Japanese coach here, Beef Sasaki, from him. And he was a wonderful guy to learn from. You know, really taught me everything. Most important thing that he taught me was how to separate my quads when you know, when I'm in any sort of front stance. And there's a lot of guys that can't do it that well. So, you know, I'm so grateful that you know, because
the small details make a big difference, man.
Right? You know, and actually, no, like that's actually been flagged though by other like judges and stuff too.
Yeah.
You know, that they love the way that my quads will separate all the way up to the top, etc. So I'm very lucky to have learned that. And then also like I did stuff like so Kenny Wallach is a very famous coach as well for posing. And he, at the time when he was first getting started out, he was in Princeton, New Jersey. Nope, wrong. He was in Yale. Yale is where? Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut.
New Haven, Connecticut.
That's right, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
My East Coast U.S. West Coast Canadian is not that strong. No, New Haven, Connecticut is definitely there. What I did was I scheduled a business trip where I flew in early, landed, rented a car, drove up to New Haven, had a posing lesson with Kenny in person.
Wow.
Right. And it was an amazing experience. It was like, I think we worked together for 45 minutes, but he just like boom, 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 boom. By the end of it, I had confidence and he was so encouraging. That was like just another great thing to do. I mean, he provides lessons online now, and I still work with him online. I actually got a session with him coming up.
Oh, wow, great.
2 nights from now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, getting ready for this season. But yeah, so he, just a fantastic coach. And I learned so much from him, and then sort of like just kept, practicing and applying and working with Beef's on when I got back. And, went in, had that show. It was such a great experience to finally get on stage and finally realize, what I'd been working towards and what I was interested in for such a long time. And then the results were pretty good too. Like, I won the Masters, but that wasn't really a competition because the other guy was not really there as a competitor himself. I think maybe he meant to buy a spectator ticket and wound up entering
went the wrong way towards the backstage. Yeah.
Hit the wrong button in the cart checkout or something. So there's that guy. But then in the open class, like I placed 3rd out of like 7 or something.
Not bad at all. First time on stage.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
And then I did a couple other shows later that year where I won like open lightweight and and then I won an overall at another show and stuff like that. So I had a real sort of string of success in the first year, which was great. And obviously I got the bug.
Here you are. You're starting a prep right now, right? I believe.
Yeah. So I'm 13 out from a show right now.
Wow. So, okay. Yeah.
So as we continue on with this, the face will continue to get more.
get that lovely death face that we love so much in the bodybuilding world.
Look, So fun times ahead. So the results were really encouraging, and then I went back and I found that like the master's level in particular wasn't very challenging. So I've just basically been focusing on open since then, and have sort of varying levels of success with that. Recently, I've had quite a few injuries over the years that I've worked out. And in fact, if anyone has questions about injuries, like leave it in the comments. Tell me that you want to learn about how to recover from injuries and stuff. I mean, Matt, you've had yours too.
Yeah.
Right? So,
we can do a show on that. I think that's worthwhile talking about that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing I have confidence in, my ability to, train and maintain through, through an injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
So had that. And then, this year is going to be the first time since 2021 on stage. I'm really looking forward to it. There's some great shows that are coming up in Asia here. So really, really thrilled about that. So I think that's it. That's pretty much everything.
That's where we are today. Yeah. I think, I mean, as far as you hopping into a show soon after a few years off, what I've seen your pictures recently, I definitely see a lot of improvement there. So looking forward to see what you bring to the stage this time.
Still early days, right? Don't worry. I've always said that my special skill, and this kind of goes along with why I pay attention to conditioning, but my special skill is the ability to lose weight. So
that's a skill I don't have. So
I don't want to get ahead of myself here, because I might wind up on stage at 145 pounds again. Like, the way that
we don't want that. We don't want that. Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see how things.
You got to be peeled though, no matter what, right?
Oh no, I'm gonna.
You're gonna be peeled, and you're gonna be posing perfectly, probably.
Those are the two things, because obviously with so many injuries now it's a bit different, right? The motivation for posing.
Right.
I do have more size than when I started, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've also had so many injuries that I've got I have to find new ways to display my body the best that I can. So I've got to pay attention to that, and that's kind of why I'm reaching out to Kenny so early, and hoping to get his advice on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking to see how that turns out, definitely, because I think I was never a very good poser, so it'd be good to see how you pose. But as far as the posing conditioning, those two areas are always a bit challenging for me. So I will be living vicariously through you when you get back on stage next time. And
thank you.
In a couple months. So it's a great origin story, Craig. Thanks so much. I think it helps people understand a bit about us. I think today we'll probably cut it there, so people don't listen to us old guys ramble too much. But it's always fun.
Rambling there.
Always fun to talk. And I think we definitely got to come back and talk about things like injuries and stuff like that. Importance of posing. I think there's a lot of things to cover there. And injuries itself too. I know when I was injured and you helped me out, there's a time when we're looking for people who've lived and recovered through what we're going through. And if we can help people with that, I think that'd be really helpful to our listeners. So I'm really episode on that.
That's something I'm very keen to do, especially because if somebody can learn from the mistakes that I've made, perhaps they don't have to make them themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
All the mistakes.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Craig. Really appreciate talking to you. As always, we will be back again for another episode soon. Thank you all to all of our listeners. Those of you who follow us on social media, please drop us a note. Let us hear what you want us to talk about. We're very, very interested in engaging you and talking what you want to hear about. Even if it's just talking about ourselves and our experiences, we're happy to be here for all of you. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Please like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yes, I got to get that down. Thanks very much. Okay, thanks, Craig. Right. Okay, take care, everybody.
Thanks,
we'll see you soon.
Cheers.